Hi, it's the number one Ford fan here, and today in this video I'm going to walk through my 1 month experience here with the all-new Ford e-Transit. They say you can get 307 kilometers per charge on this car, and later on in the video I'm going to tell you exactly what I got. Why don't you use the chapters below and skip to any part of the video that might interest you. I'm not a tradie, I'm not a delivery driver. I had this thing for 4 weeks. I drove it as my everyday driver. I do about 500 to 600 Ks per week driving around metropolitan Adelaide, and I didn't load it. I didn't have the opportunity to put loads into it, so if you're thinking that I'm going to give you the battery charging result with it fully loaded, unfortunately I can't give you that. I'm going to give you my experience with charging, with driving, the general feel of the car, the acceleration, and just my general snapshot of what it's like to drive this car. It comes in the mid and the high, and there's 3 colors: frozen white, moondust silver, and magnetic. It has a 64 kilowatt usable battery. It has DC fast charging and AC charging as well. I'm going to go through my experience of charging right near my home and a RAA charging. It was a 7 kilowatt charger, and I'm going to go through the exact statistics on how much it cost me and how many kilometers I was getting per charge. Now, also with the fast charging, it has the ability to go from 15% to 80% in just 34 minutes if you're using a 115 kilowatt charger. So moving to the front, you can see these blue accents here straight away give away that it's an e-car. It's a full electric van. The charging port is here. It has the AC and DC chargers here. So the AC one is the only one that I use because I was charging at a RAA port, ChargeFox station just near my home. And then you've got your DC here as well. So when you plug in a DC fast charger, it's going to take up both ports and fill that up. You've also got your eject button there, and it illuminates when you're charging. There's no camera at the front, but you've got the big Ford logo. Now, Ford hasn't made this as a ground up electric car. It's essentially a Ford Transit converted into an electrical car. It's not built from the ground up as electric, so they've just changed it and converted it. Going through is a center mount low battery to help with gravity and balance. Now, this e-Transit has 198 kilowatts and 430 Newton meters of torque on a rear wheel drive platform. Moving to the side of the e-Transit, there's not much different from the other Transit. There's only one difference here. As you can see, this is probably where the petrol would have been, and this is just blanked out, so you can't access this at all anymore. Moving to the back, it's just your regular Transit van at the back. We have a high mounted camera and also an LED light there. Now, there's some good coverage with that camera, and when we move to the inside, I'm going to show you the touch display, which is quite big, and this camera is really effective as far as reversing goes. It has a gross vehicle mass, GVM, of 4,250 kilos. The payload on the mid roof is 1,611 kilos, and the high roof is 1,566 kilos. The other thing you're going to see that's different for the e-Transit is the blue ribbon here and the e-Transit badging. Now, the Ford e-Transit is covered by the Ford 5-year Express New Car Warranty. The electrical battery and drivetrain are covered for 160 kilometers or 8 years, whichever comes first. Some of the things to point out as far as comfort, you can see I'm leaning on this armrest. It's nothing new, but it works quite well for a comfortable driving position. I'm 6 foot, so I feel like I'm very comfortable in this cabin. You've got 3 seats here, plus you've got your courier's parcel shelf there with a nice little strap. You got some drink holders and generally nice cloth material. You can also access underneath by just lifting up these both here. And that's where we'll be storing the cable, so it's not sliding around in the back. This works well, it's quite functional. Drove with the family, had a 13-year-old boy who's almost 6 foot in this seat, wife there. It's very comfortable and it's got a bit of size. So across the top here, you've got a really nice shelf. You can't really lean too much onto it because it's not really fixed, but the handle here is something you can really grab on to help yourself in and out of the vehicle. Now, on the passenger side, there's no makeup mirror. These sections are good for your sunglass holder, although sometimes they get jammed in there and you can't get them out. It's got some tweeters here, and it's just got door speakers. Now, the music isn't great, but the dialogue is awesome through here, and it must be something to do with the way the tweeters and the acoustics, because when I'm talking on the phone to someone, they sound so clear, and the audio from dialogue is really clear. It's also really clear on podcasts as well. So it's a good car for that. I mean, you're not going to win an award or a stereo competition with the big loud bass when you've just got these door speakers, but that really surprised me how clean and crisp the audio sounds through these front speakers here. There's some really good sections here for putting stuff with a non-slip rubber mat all built into all of of this. Only problem is in Australia, anything that you're going to put there is going to cook. You're going to put your phone or some electrical equipment. If you have a sat nav or a phone mount or anything here, it just gets hot. Unfortunately, this is really good looking space, but not much use in Australia. There's also a 12 volt charger here, and there's also a USB-C charger here. For me, not very handy, because if you're going to mount some kind of, a navigation device or, your computer for your courier driving or anything, it's just going to get cooked here. So unfortunately, I found that that's not much use, but it may be for other tradies. I found myself connecting to the wired connection here, this USB port, although it does support Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wirelessly. Okay, let's look at the passenger side. Now we've got a nice plastic scuff plate. Of course, we've got the all plastic floor. This drink holder is quite handy, although it does hit your knee when you get in and out if you've got a bigger, longer drink bottle. You've got one here as well, and this, unfortunately, doesn't hold a can too well without wobbling. A 600ml bottle wobbles a bit. So you need a drink bottle that's going to really fill this, or it just gets a little bit wobbly and a little bit noisy. So you can see we've got our door speaker here. Your just simple lock controls here, your window controls on top, and quite a deep cavity in the door for storing stuff. The glove box is key lockable. There is also a drink holder here. Quite a handy spot, but you'll see that the drinks actually wobble around on this one as well. Another nice little cargo spot just here. And you're kind of hoping for something to pop out here, but this is just a blank out. Just looking at the driver's side, you've got your mirror controls here, your lighting controls here and here. Your auto hold button is here on this side, as well as your handbrake. Takes a little bit of getting used to use that. Another drink holder here. As above, the actual steering wheel does periscope and tilt. You've got the European indicator stalk on this side, and you've got the new wiper controls on this side. Cruise controls there, plus your volume for your stereo, and then you've got all your controls for your phone on the bottom here, as well as working your way through the menus as well on this side. Three-way electric seats. The passenger, unfortunately, gets no adjustment whatsoever, so they're locked in the same position. This touch display is 12 inches. It's absolutely huge, and it's got a nice gloss finish on it, and when you set it to dark mode just looks excellent on it. We can see on the screen we've got our acceleration, our deceleration, and then the second 2/3 is dedicated to Apple CarPlay. Now what you can do is you can actually go into and set sat nav and have the actual Ford one playing on the main screen, and then your acceleration and deceleration on the left hand side. You can change these around and mess with the actual what you want on the screen at the same time, but the actual Ford navigation is all blacked out and looks really good and works well with this display. Also, you'll note that there is no hard controls for the actual heater. Now on the Ranger, when you have that, you choose to use the hard buttons because the Ranger's a bit bouncy. This one's actually pretty smooth, so it is quite easy to turn on your heated seats and that sort of thing, and turn things off. The controls work a lot easier because you're not bouncing around as much. So lacking the actual hard buttons for the controls, I find is not such a big deal. You have, of course, got heated seats on the passenger and the driver. They've got 3 different settings. The seats are not cooled. Now when we're moving to the display, you can actually, in the button here, you can turn the display off and just go calm screen. This one here is for your parking assist, and this one here is for your 3 modes. Of course, you've got normal, eco, and slippery. Now when you turn the car off, no matter what mode you're in, it goes back to normal every time. So you've got to reset and change your settings as you go along to whatever mode you like. I'm looking at my right hand side of the controls, is showing me the speed. The left hand side is showing me the power, when we're using power and when we're actually gaining power from the regenerative braking. There's a little blue indicator which shows you your Ks that you've got left in your charge. You've got your speed, and you can set different screens for in the middle there, but I like to have the speed in digital at the front. You can set up your trip computers and that sort of thing as well. It also has speed sign recognition, so that is handy when it pops up when you're driving as well. Now we do have adaptive cruise control on this vehicle, but there's one thing you've got to know before you take off in it. The vehicle does not come to a complete stop and brake for you to a complete stop. I don't know why that happens. It must be because of the weight of the car. It does have a digital handbrake, so usually when you have adaptive cruise, that car will then take you to a full stop. This one gets to 20 kilometers, and below that, the adaptive cruise control is cancelled, and it's up to you to brake yourself to a complete stop when you've got traffic in front of you. That's something that you have to know, because if you're just thinking, whistling away, adaptive cruise control is going to bring me to a stop, and all of a sudden it doesn't, it's something that you want to be on top of. Let's get to the point that you've all been waiting for, the charging. Now it says that it can get up to 301 kilometers per charge in the battery, and then there's a little asterisk by it. So that depends on the size of the van, depends on the conditions, the heat in the battery, depends on your load, it depends on a lot of things. So I'm not a courier driver or a tradie, so I drove it unladen all the time. Unless you've got a charger at home, which I don't, you've got to leave at least 20 kilometers in there to get to your charger. What I found is that leaving that at least 20 kilometers in it, you get about 230 kilometers per charge. I was charging at a Charge Fox station at my local pub, which was a couple of minutes away, and it was an RAA setup one, and they had the 7 kilowatt chargers. Now the 7 kilowatt chargers aren't very fast. So what I had to do was drop it off at night time, set it to charge, and by morning it was fully charged. Now there's an advantage to that, is you get a bit of a cheaper rate after 10 in the charging rates when you're charging the car. So that was the advantage that I've got. So each charge would take around 8 to 10 hours to charge the car, depending on how much are left in it. And the chargers were costing $15 to $17 to charge every time. So that's what I achieved on that particular charging station, and that's the cost that I got through that charging station. I would plug it in, and through the Charge Fox app, I could see the car was charging, I could see how long it was charging for, and how many kilowatt hours I've used. I didn't bother setting up the Ford Pass app, just probably through a bit of laziness, but you can control the charging, and you can turn it and tell it when to charge at night time. You can set all those charge times with it as well. I didn't bother doing that with this one. I didn't take it to a fast charger. I didn't take it to anything besides a 7 kilowatt charger. Now, understand Stillwell Ford, who are the owners of this car, have a 35 kilowatt charging hour DC charger, which is not the fast 115 fast charger, and they're saying they get it to full charge within a couple of hours. So depending on where you're charging, you can get that charge built up. Now talk about driving. I have found the driving experience excellent in this car. The pickup is really good. When you're at a standing start and you flatten it, the pickup is pretty good, and the instant torque becomes available. You find the pickup is really there as when you're rolling a little bit and then you step on it. I found the speed is great. Working through traffic, on the expressway, passing, getting up to 100, 110, no problems at all. Of course, I was unladen. So the results of the pickup on this engine will be different if you're laden, and I just didn't have the opportunity to put any weight inside this car. People have done the 0 to 100 on this, and it's pretty shocking, like slow. I actually put an overlay on screen, and this little pickup is very zippy. So there's no problem with speed and power, and having the rear wheel drive is excellent as well, because you don't have that uncertainty across the front and that torque steering and that sort of things. Things that I would change, there's only a couple of things, and I know you get what you get for the money that you pay, but a few little things that I would like to change is I would like to have this screen cheated a little bit towards us, because it is quite flat and quite big, and you feel kind of at a distance from the screen. So I would like to have had it just shaded towards the driver a little bit more, but obviously they're making it so it's standard for European, non-European, American left-hand drive, that sort of thing. The other thing I feel like it's really missing was keyless entry. If it had that keyless entry, you could, if you're a courier driver or a trade and you're always in and out of your car, you'd find that you could really take advantage of that keyless entry and just leaving your key in your pocket. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was going to be as slow as a wet weekend. It certainly is not slow. I thought it would be really noisy and just echoey, and it didn't handle very well. But what I found is that this thing is so quiet. And so when you take off, you're usually associating a van with winding through the gears, noise through the back. With this partition here, it's very, very quiet. And when you take off, you're expecting to be revving out in every gear, and that's just not happening. The air conditioner is a little bit noisy. That's probably the noisiest thing in the car when you've got the air conditioner up full. It's not the fan speed. There's a bit of a hum like an airplane noise. I mean, it's not a bad thing, but that's just what I noticed on it as well. Now I understand that these are fairly expensive and you don't get a lot of kilometers. I would like to see maybe you get 300, 350, 400 per charge, and then it gets to be a really exciting prospect for someone to be able to buy this and know that they can drive it 2 or 3 days without charging if you're a tradie, delivery driver. The other thing is your mobility and being able to see things. These mirrors are the twin mirrors. One has got the wide angle, and then it's got the close angle mirror, plus the blind spot detection, the orange light. So I've never made a bad lane change. I've always felt like I've got good vision, everything like that. Reversing is killer with this big, huge reverse camera. You can see all over the place. And it's good for night when the light goes on. You can see, I mean, you wouldn't want to film Lord of the Rings with the camera, but it is really good, and I found that I was very secure reversing with the 4 parking sensors in the front, the 4 parking sensors in the back. I don't feel like I did any risky moves. I didn't get close to anything. It's one of those things that you think when you get one of these big things, you're going to be hitting stuff. The only problem is with the high roof is you do get a few branches hitting the top of the car when you are turning too close to trees and that sort of thing. So that's something you've got to think about. Okay, now I'm just going to put it in reverse to show you sort of the view that you get from that camera. It's so big and wide, and you feel really secure reversing with it. It's got the dynamic turn lines as well, so it's just a huge screen. You just see how big it is when you look at it. Huge thank you for Stillwell Ford for letting me drive this for 1 whole month. They are specialists in e-vehicles, and they have a 35 kilowatt DC charger there as well. If you want to test drive this vehicle, don't hesitate to reach out to them and see one of their electric vehicle specialists. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.